This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. So this weekend, the fabulous Lady C went ahead and had Samantha Markle on her Saturday broadcasts. And I wasn't going to do a video about this, but so many of you have asked me to go ahead and comment on some of the things that Samantha was saying. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole video, but there is one particular moment that I do feel the need to comment on to show you why I am calling this a government psyops and why I don't believe anything anymore that the Markles have to say. I truly do believe now, after seeing this one section and doing the research that I do, that Samantha, Thomas Markle Jr., all have been playing a part of this from the very beginning with Meghan. And you're going to understand why as we go through this video. So the one important question that Lady C asked, she asked in the very beginning to Samantha. Lady C says, to me, is one of the most crucial things in this whole story, how she set your father up in terms of that interview with Jeff Rayner. And I really, since you are the person that Jeff Rayner approached, I would like to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So essentially asking Samantha to talk about why Meghan is to blame for setting her father up to give her the excuse to not invite her. So Samantha begins to talk about this Australian lawsuit that Jeff Rayner was a part of and had lost. And the reason for doing that is to persuade the audience to believe that, yeah, Meghan did set her dad up through Jeff Rayner. Now, I normally don't say this, but this particular video is juicy all the way to the end. So before I forget, please help the kid out and hit that like button. You know how YouTube treats me. I do think that this is one of those videos that needs to be seen. And so here we go.
Exactly. And as you know, Jeff Rayner reportedly lost his case against Sunrise 7 ABC Australia because I think he tried to sue the studio because my father shared the story and his experience. And Jeff Rayner reportedly lost that case because he could not show that it wasn't true.
So on September 14, 2021, Thomas Markle went on Sunrise to talk about his estrangement with Meghan and the Invisible Kids. In this interview with Sunrise 7, Thomas Markle explains how he believes he was set up by Jeff Rayner. And he goes on to say some things that, yeah, were kind of hurtful, but not defamatory from the Sunrise 7 side. It was more defamatory from Thomas Markle's side. Here's what he said.
Of course, the photographs were a setup. I was set up by a guy named Jeff Rayner and another guy named Dylan Howard, who was with American Media, I think. And the whole thing was a plan to actually mess up the wedding. I was just part of it. Basically, they went to my oldest daughter and convinced my oldest daughter to convince me to have photographs to clean up my image, because the photographs before that were always making me look bad. So I bought into it and went along. I regret it to this day because it was a total setup. And Jeff knew he knew it. Matter of fact, he bragged about it on Facebook. He bragged about it to everybody. Someday I'd like to, I'm tempted to sue him. If I fail in suing him, I hope to see him someday with Weinstein, because he was also shooting young women for Weinstein to make them look bad so they couldn't sue him for rape.
Yeah. How does that make you feel? From what you're saying, you were conned by your eldest daughter in cahoots with this management company to stage these photos that really destroyed your relationship, was the last straw for Meghan Markle.
Let me correct that. My oldest daughter was conned into conning me. And they went first to my oldest daughter and said that they would make me look good. And I went along with it. Had I been a little younger and a little smarter, it wouldn't have happened. But I fell for it, and I fell a long way for it. So I do regret it to this day, and I am trying to sue the man. And if I can't succeed in suing him, like I said, I'd be happy to see him laying beside Weinstein.
So without getting too into the weeds of this case, Jeff Rayner had sued because he claims the broadcast defamed him after Thomas Markle said he had been set up to take stage paparazzi photographs to derail his daughter's wedding to Prince Harry in May of 2018. The report was defamatory because it claimed he was a dishonest management consultant who conned Mr. Markle to disrupt the royal wedding. You see, what Samantha fails to mention, which I find very manipulative here, is that she fails to mention that it's not just the accusation of Thomas Markle saying that he was set up by Coleman Rayner, but also the accusations about Weinstein. In Jeff Rayner's defense, he said that the interview also falsely claimed he had conspired with Harvey Weinstein by taking compromising pictures of the convicted rapist victims to prevent them from suing. Now, in Seven's defense, they denied the imputations were conveyed, but said that if they were, claims Rayner was a dishonest photographer who conned Mr. Markle were true. And that's where Seven's defense got him. The paparazzo's photo agency is accused of conspiring to obtain salacious information about actor Rose McGowan, who accused film producer Harvey Weinstein of raping her. The agency is also accused of selling photographs and information that falsely claim Richard Simmons was transitioning to become a woman, and of providing images to New Idea falsely claiming to be of Patrick McDermott, the missing former partner of Olivia Newton-John. So at the bottom, the justice presiding over this, Stuart Anderson, had found Seven had put Jeff Rayner on notice of its case through a clear defense, and that the interview with Mr. Markle contained the kinds of imputations the media firm claimed it did. And what was said by the actual justice was this: I consider that it is at least reasonably arguable that the general tenor of the interview, as conveyed to the ordinary viewer, is that the applicant's business dealings involved deception and dishonesty. And that's the reason why Jeff Rayner lost. It doesn't necessarily prove what Samantha is trying to do here, which is set up the narrative of blaming Meghan for purposely setting up her father to have an excuse to not invite him to the wedding. You're going to see why I'm going into such detail about this, for you to understand how we are all being manipulated and lied to.
So I'm prefacing this with that to show that, yes, I do believe that he set my father up. He contacted me because he didn't know how to get a hold of my father. Nobody did. And I was out there defending my dad. So he contacted me, and I still have the text messages.
Like, I'm not going to even ask to see those text messages because you can't trust that. You can't trust anything that the Markles are telling us or showing us. If they had these text messages, don't you think they would have shown it already? Now, all of a sudden, you're bringing up these text messages? Look, I don't doubt that Samantha put Thomas Markle in contact with Jeff Rayner. You see, Samantha's not giving you the full picture of what has gone on and this relationship with Coleman Rayner. So Samantha Markle and Thomas Markle, as we just heard, wants the public to believe that it was only after the photos of Thomas Markle being photographed in not the best light that Samantha put him in contact with Jeff Rayner. I mean, are we all on the same page at this moment? You understand it that way? I understand it that way. You see, what Samantha's not telling you is that Coleman Rayner had been involved since as early as 2016, before anyone knew who Thomas Markle was, or Samantha Markle. It appears that Coleman Rayner has been a part of this saga from the very beginning. Dated December 26, 2016, some candid photos of Samantha Markle and Thomas Markle Jr. are floated out there, but not in the U.S. market and not in the UK market. In fact, we didn't see these photos. These photos were floated out to Eastern Europe. As you can see there, this is a Ukraine site. There's Samantha Markle and Thomas Markle Jr. But how do I know that Coleman Rayner were responsible? Well, when you drill down and look at the photos, there is their name. And there it is again. And one more time, again. Now, you could give Samantha Markle the benefit of the doubt, but where would Coleman Rayner have gotten these photos? But that's not the worst of it. You know those photos that Thomas Markle was so embarrassed of, making him look like a complete slob because the paparazzi were hounding him? You see, those photos were also by Coleman Rayner. Right there, clear as day. And it's not just that photo, it's all the photos. They were all taken by Coleman Rayner. There, Thomas Markle buying beer. Oh, what does that say? Coleman Rayner. There's Thomas Markle, who doesn't have the best health, smoking it up in the car. Oh, what does it say in the corner of the photo? Coleman Rayner. Oh, what does that say again? Coleman Rayner. And again, Coleman Rayner. Now, here's one of the earlier ones from 2017. Remember when they were complaining of how Thomas Markle was hounded by the paparazzi? What does that say at the bottom? Coleman Rayner. So I don't want to hear this bullshit that when these photos came out, that's when Coleman Rayner stepped in to save the day. So now when I listen to the rest of what Samantha Markle has to say, all I'm seeing here right now is manipulation and lies.
And he promised, he said, you know, the media's really been beating your dad up. We think we can help. We'll make him look like he really is instead of the slovenly thing that nasty paparazzi have been making him look like.
You see how stupid she looks now?
So I trusted that. And no, I was not paid for the record. I was a go-between because they didn't know how to get a hold of my dad. They knew that in defense of my dad, I would want to help him. So I put them together. I let him know how he could get a hold of him.
So is she telling us that she's the one that told them where he was? Because how else would they have found him to take those horrible pictures of him? If I didn't know any better, I'd say that they were all in on it from the word go with Meghan.
And it seemed above board. It seemed like I could really trust him to take care of my dad and not abuse him in the media because he was being abused by paparazzi and PR.
Again, she sounds so stupid now.
And unbeknownst to us, this was an agenda.
And Samantha's not lying here because she has been a part of this agenda from the very beginning. The way that we have watched this all play out was intentional. It is my opinion, but Thomas Markle was never planning on going to that wedding.
Yeah, I stop you there. Didn't you, and interject, didn't you come to various agreements with him, limiting what he should and shouldn't do, the distances, etc.?
No, I didn't. There were no such agreements. He just promised me that it would be discreet, that, because I didn't want my dad flooded with people in public gawking if there were cameras around. So he said, oh, don't worry, I'll be 100 yards down in the bushes. Nobody will see me. That was the whole reason for wanting that. But so you can imagine, I trusted him as my father is fragile. And then I see him walking a few feet behind my dad and next to him in the internet cafe. Subsequently, my father let me know that it was Jeff who chose the cafe when my father said, I know this really great little place. We can go and it's private and quiet. Jeff said, no, I know this great place. Of course he said that. In my opinion, he knew there was a camera on the ceiling in the internet cafe. He knew that he was going to turn it into a huge story.
I believe, Samantha, this conversation did happen. Thomas Markle suggested a place, but Jeff is like, no, let's go to the cafe because of the camera being there. I believe Thomas Markle fully knew what he was getting into, especially now looking at this from a different perspective as a result of seeing Coleman Rayner being involved with the Markles before anybody knew of Thomas Markle or Samantha Markle.
And staged the whole thing. He knew where that camera was and that it would catch them so that the Daily Mail could do a huge scandal story from that point of view, looking down at them from that camera in the internet cafe. And that's exactly the photograph that came out as a headline.
And I'd like to remind everyone that Caroline Graham, the one that was helping Thomas Markle pack before he went off into the sunset, Southeast Asia, that did that article in the Daily Mail and who had gotten close with the Markles and have written about them over the years. Well, she was the one behind the article that Samantha's talking about that took the front page as well as caused this big scandal and rift to end Meghan's relationship with her dad, or alleged dad.
No coincidence, in my opinion. So I felt that the whole thing was staged. And then, lo and behold, he goes to his Facebook page and brags about a cheeky little hit on my father on his own Facebook page.
Sounds like that was all part of the plan, to make people think that this was indeed a setup. It was a setup, but a setup that you, Samantha, and Thomas Markle were a part of with Meghan. Based off of what is out there, this is the conclusion that I'm coming to.
So he admitted that it was a hit. He knew exactly what was going on. And why do I think my sister had something to do with it? Because she photographed with him before the wedding. She photographed with him, if I'll just say this, if a photographer ruins your wedding, you would be beside yourself. You would want nothing to do with that scoundrel, right? Well, if he ruined her wedding and it was so horrific, why would she photograph with him when she got to Montecito?
This sounds a lot like projection. I guess, Samantha, you should be asking the same question. Why would your father continue to keep working with and befriending Caroline Graham if she was the one who essentially destroyed this relationship as a result of this exposure of these photos that were taken? That ruined your father's life, causing him to have a heart attack and then subsequently a stroke as a result of all of what Meghan has done. But I think it's worth remembering that it was Samantha Markle who was responsible for kicking off this family drama in the first place. On November 1st, 2016, less than 24 hours that it was announced that Harry and Meghan were dating, the Sun already had an exclusive interview done and ready to go to print for the next day. So when you go back to Samantha's book, she makes it sound like, once this news was dropped, she was trying every route to get hold of Meghan to find out what she should do. And the paparazzi and the journalists were hounding at her door that she had no choice but to do this interview. When you look at the time frame, she barely gave it 24 hours. And this type of article, especially if nobody knew who Samantha Markle was before this was announced, would not have been ready in time and passed through their legal department in order to go to print on November 2nd. You feel me? So when you really think about it and you look at how everything went down and you look at how many of these stories were so inconsistent and contradicted one another, in the beginning, we all gave Samantha Markle grace when this article came out and she, did live interview by saying, no, they distorted her words. Okay, we gave her the benefit of the doubt. But now when you look back at everything that has happened and now listening to the things that she's saying now and the shifts in the narratives, you start to then see this differently, especially when all the photos that we have been fed over the years of Meghan and her childhood have been faked. Even the videos have been deep-faked. And a majority of those photos, according to the Daily Mail, were provided by the Markles, either it be Thomas Markle Sr., Jr., or Samantha.
And then we see photographs, Jeff Rayner as the photography credit on the bottom of those photographs of her walking the dog in Montecito. Doesn't seem like she was upset that the wedding was ruined at all. In fact, because they were friends before the wedding and after, I would suggest that they planned it.
And we could say the very same thing about Samantha, Thomas Markle Sr., and Jr. There is Coleman Rayner in the bottom corner, 2017. I'm so tired of all the excuses that this family has put up every time they get called out that I don't even care what the excuse is going to be now to explain this.
And may I interject and say, if I recall correctly, Jeff Rayner was also one of the photographers who was credited on their Netflix series.
No coincidence there.
Well,
so exactly.
Nancy, you mustn't be like that. It's all a terrible coincidence. Netflix was so taken advantage of by everyone.
I'm sorry, but we all look like the idiots because look at how Samantha has taken advantage of the Megxit community. Look, you can't fault Lady C for going along with this because we all went along with it. We all believed what we were fed and how it was fed, in the way that it was fed. Each one of us will come to our own moment where the penny drops and you see it. You see how we have been lied to, how we've been manipulated. And I can't wait till the penny drops for Lady C because she's going to go scorched earth on the Markles when she finds out that she's been taken advantage of.
One tail left eye, please.
The problem with it is that scandal around the wedding that was totally set up to frame and to destroy my father as a bogus excuse for keeping him away from the wedding. When really I think the reason to keep Dad away from the wedding is because he would innocently share her life stories and they wouldn't coincide with what she had told the royal family.
All right, I'm going to use a little bit of common sense to form my opinion here. You see, Samantha Markle suspects that the reason why Meghan didn't invite her father or did what she did to her father, as well as leave the whole side of the Markles out for this wedding, was because she was afraid it was going to come out that she lied to the royal family pertaining to not working for the Argentinian embassy, as well as, it was her dad who paid for all of her university. She didn't get grants or scholarships. That's what Samantha is saying. But here's the thing, like applying common sense. If you as the parent had a child that was marrying into the royal family, wouldn't you be on your best behavior? Like at what point would it be appropriate to just blurt out that, oh, I paid for all of Meghan's university? No, she didn't get scholarships and grants. Like at what point would that come up in conversation at a wedding? It wouldn't, you know what I mean? And even if it did, you would at least have enough common sense to not spoil it. And maybe on the side, ask your child, well, what do they mean by this? Why did they say this? Right? But you certainly wouldn't cause any sort of waves. I mean, when they tell the story of this alleged wedding between Meghan and Trevor gave the speech about how Meghan is now getting the family she never had, Thomas Markle didn't make a stink about it. He was silent. Him and Doria were silent, or at least that's what they're telling us. I don't believe that even happened, but, we're going to go with what was said. He didn't make a stink about it, so why would those two insignificant lies that Meghan has told, and at that time, those lies weren't out in the public yet, right? Aside from maybe the Argentinian embassy, but nobody was really talking about it, so why would that come up? Why would that come up in conversation? The other thing, too, is that did you know that Thomas Markle writes for the Mail on Sunday? There it is, right there. In addition to all the interviews that he has given and documentaries that have been created. And as I was getting this video together, I stumbled upon a documentary that never saw the light of day in the United States or the UK. And, as I mentioned earlier on in this video, that it appears that the Markles and Meghan and whoever else is behind this whole scam had put various photos and narratives out to different markets. So, what they were talking about in the UK was very different to what they were talking about in the United States, all based off of the media. And I don't know if this is part of what we have gone through as being some type of little sick experiment, but there was a documentary that was released in Germany on May 13, 2018, 6 days before the actual wedding. And who do we see show up in this documentary? That would be Samantha Markle. Let's take a peek and see what she was saying back then. Keep in mind that this was 2018. All the photos that we have seen of Meghan's childhood weren't out yet. So you will recognize a lot of those photos that we debunked as either manipulated or faked.
Und zwar nicht irgendwo, sondern in Amerika. In Hollywood. Welcher Ort könnte passender sein für den Anfang dieser außergewöhnlichen Lebensgeschichte? Meghans Eltern kennen sich aus dem Showbusiness. Mutter Doria jobbt als Maskenbildnerin, Vater Thomas ist Beleuchter beim Fernsehen. Die kleine Meghan ist sein drittes Kind. Er hat bereits 2 Kinder aus erster Ehe. Eines von ihnen lebt heute hier. In Silver Springs, mitten in Florida. Samantha Grant Markle ist Meghans Halbschwester. Die 53-Jährige sitzt im Rollstuhl. Sie leidet an Multiple Sklerose. Als Meghan geboren wird, ist Samantha 17 und die kleine Schwester sorgt für ordentlich Trubel.
So as Samantha is looking through this album with old photos of Meghan and her dad, my question is, where are the photos of her children? Where are the photos of the whole family together? You notice all those photos have been circling and circling for the past 7 years. We've heard the so-called Markles talk about getting along with Doria's family and going over there for meals and holidays. Where are those photos of all of them together?
When Meg was a baby, she was...
Meghan war als Baby ein regelrechtes Energiebündel. Und ja, ich weiß, alle finden, dass ihre kleine Schwester oder ihr Baby das Hübscheste ist. Aber sie war es wirklich.
All right, so here's what I find really weird about this, is that Samantha goes on about how beautiful Meghan was. She was really the most beautiful baby. Now, if you are a parent, Would you be saying that about another child that's not yours? Now, we were told that Samantha allegedly has these 2 children that she left behind with the parental grandparents. Now, this is a little odd to me that you would be saying this about somebody else's baby when you have your own that you completely left behind. What's also really weird and odd is that we never hear Samantha talk about or have seen any evidence of her going back and celebrating birthday milestones with her children or holidays or even like summer breaks or winter breaks, going on vacation with them, nothing. All we've heard is, oh, how close Meghan and Samantha were when Meghan was little and how she used to take her to the mall or help her with her homework or, being present when Meghan was growing up. So why weren't you doing that for your own children? If you could do it for Meghan, why didn't you make the effort to do it with your own kids? Unless that too is also a fabrication.
Meghan ist das Nesthäkchen in der Familie Markle.
And she was intelligent.
Meghan war intelligent und neugierig. Das sind natürlich alle Babys, klar. Aber sie war dabei immer glücklich und fröhlich. Und auch als sie etwas älter wurde, blieb sie kreativ, aufgeweckt und aufmerksam. Ich fand das so cool.
Doch das Familienglück zerbricht. Als Meghan 2 ist, trennen sich die Eltern. 4 Jahre später lassen sie sich scheiden.
Als Meghans Eltern sich trennten, haben sie versucht, es so unkompliziert wie möglich zu machen. Sie sagten zu Meghan, jetzt hast du 2 zu Hause. Mama und Papa sind immer für dich da und alle haben dich lieb. Dass wir uns scheiden lassen, ist nicht das Ende der Welt.
Meghan und ihre Mutter ziehen um nach Miracle Mile, einem anderen Viertel in Los Angeles. Hier lebt damals Naltil Charbonnet mit ihrer Tochter Tay. Sie wohnen in diesem Haus und wollen die kleine Wohnung über der Garage vermieten. Es melden sich Meghan und ihre Mama Doria.
Meghan war damals ein süßes kleines Baby, gerade mal 2 Jahre alt. Sie und ihre Mutter hatten schon den ganzen Tag Wohnungen besichtigt, als sie zu mir kamen. Wir hatten damals wunderschöne Feigenbäume im Garten. Sie zogen bei uns ein und waren perfekte Mieter. Und wir waren einfach froh, sie hier zu haben. Sie waren immer reizend, sehr freundlich, unkompliziert und herzlich.
Meghan zieht mit ihrer Mutter in die Wohnung ein. Und Tay, die Tochter der Vermieterin, wird eine gute Freundin.
Ich erinnere mich daran, dass wir zusammen im Hinterhof gespielt haben. Meine Mutter hatte einen Raum für ihre Seidenmalerei. In dem waren wir auch oft. Damals gab es diesen Zaun noch nicht und wir hüpften von einer Einfahrt in die andere. Da drüben spielen gerade 2 Mädchen. Das könnten Meghan und ich sein. Manchmal haben wir auch im Garten Limonade verkauft. Es war einfach eine typische amerikanische Kindheit.
Ich kann mich nicht erinnern, dass sie ein lautes, wildes Kind war.
Das war wahrscheinlich ich.
Sie war ein sehr sanftmütiges kleines Mädchen, sehr ladylike.
So here's where all of this falls down for me. And I'm pretty sure you haven't seen these 2 ladies before, because had you seen them, especially here in the United States, people would have pointed out that they're not who they say they are in this segment. The only truth to this is that this is indeed a mother-daughter duo who both are from Hollywood. The alleged friend of Meghan Markle, Tay Hansberry, is an actress in Hollywood. Her mother is from a very well-known family in Chicago. You see, the Hansberry family are one of Black Chicago's most prominent families, and if you think you've heard of Hansberry's name before, odds are you probably have. Lorraine Hansberry made history when her play A Raisin in the Sun became the first production by a Black woman to ever premiere on Broadway. Now, you see, Lorraine is hardly an anomaly for this family. She comes from a long line of high achievers. Her father, Carl, was a real estate developer who was successful in one of the first lawsuits to help push Chicago towards legal integration. So it's safe to assume that this family is wealthy. Also, there are no records that indicate these 2 ever lived in this space. But what's interesting is when you look at the white pages and you look at Doria, her name comes up with all these addresses and places that she's lived before. But what's fascinating is that the location that allegedly Meghan and Doria moved to after Thomas Markle and Doria got divorced in 1983 shows that Doria wasn't living there, or her name wasn't attached there till 1989. In addition, it shows in 1981, Doria had been living at another location, not the location that Samantha and Thomas Markle talk about in Woodland Hills. In fact, when you look up Thomas Markle in the white pages and you compare side by side the addresses of both Doria and Thomas, there's not a single address that both of them have shared. So the question becomes, was this even a real marriage? Because I showed you photos that they clearly had photoshopped, and nothing seems normal in the story of when they got together, when they got married, when they separated, when did they move, how old was Meghan? Doria was gone for 10 years. I mean, here we have Samantha not saying a word that Doria had been gone for 10 years, and it was just Meghan going back and forth between the two houses. Now you see Doria with all these various different locations and addresses, and then compare it to Thomas Markle, which is showing that he's currently living in California. I don't need to say anymore. I think you get the picture of why I doubt what we've been told. And all those stories about Doria going off to jail, I don't believe that either. Now, I have said this before, and I'll say it again. This is most definitely a government psyops based off of not only the people that Harry and Meghan were surrounded with, but also by what was going on that just didn't make any kind of sense and didn't add up. And now when you go back over all this information, you start to see how we had been manipulated. In addition, part of this psyops and the group that Harry has been with, they were specifically conducting these disinformation campaigns. So it is very possible that this rumor about Doria going away for 10 years because she was in jail most likely was a disinformation campaign that was started by Harry and Meghan. We also have the rumor of Meghan gluing the eyes shut of a sorority sister, but to this day, nobody has been able to come forward or any other information. Someone had said it, and nobody knows where it came from, and here we are. We're still talking about it.
Die Königsfamilie hat Meghan aufgenommen. Aber wie schwierig war es wohl für Harry, auch seine Großmutter, die Königin, zu überzeugen? Schließlich musste sie der Hochzeit zustimmen. Prinz Eduard von Anhalt ist Oberhaupt der Askanier, eines der ältesten deutschen Adelsgeschlechter. Der 77-Jährige ist verwandt mit Prinz Charles. Wie kaum ein anderer in Deutschland weiß er, wie die Queen tickt.
Wenn die Queen Nein sagt, okay, dann ist Nein. Aber ich meine, so wie man Harry kennt, hätte er einen Riesenrabatz gemacht. Und das hätte nur der königlichen Familie geschadet. Und man hätte sofort gesagt, ja, die Queen ist so rassistisch oder sie hat was gegen Amerikaner oder sie hat was gegen geschiedene Frauen. Oder ich meine, die Presse wäre voll gewesen. In dem Sinne blieb ihr im Grunde nichts anderes übrig, als den Segen zu geben.
2017 darf Meghan sogar Weihnachten mit der Königsfamilie.
Now, I find this very interesting that he practically stated exactly what Harry and Meghan did. I'm sure Harry made a big fuss, and of course, they accused the royal family of being racist. Looking back, I kind of wish the Queen just said no, because, look, it happened anyway. And now as we're looking at this, I think it was always the plan to accuse the royal family of being racist.
Verbringen. Nie zuvor war dies einem nicht verheirateten Partner erlaubt worden. Sie ist akzeptiert. Ihr Leben wird sich nun grundlegend ändern.
Die Prinzessin heutzutage, die muss richtig was leisten und auch davon überzeugt sein, dass sie das machen will. Und sie muss sich vieles verkneifen, wie zum Beispiel Emotionen in der Öffentlichkeit zu zeigen oder Stellung zu nehmen zu etwas, das steht alles nicht mehr zu. Dann kommt als nächste Stufe, und jetzt musst du anfangen zu lernen, wie du dich zu benehmen hast in der Zukunft.
Im Schloss von Thornbury ist der Mann tätig, der sich mit so etwas auskennt. Grant Harold beherrscht das Butlerhandwerk und königliche Umgangsformen in Perfektion. Er hat es sozusagen aus erster Hand gelernt.
Ich habe 7 Jahre für die Königsfamilie gearbeitet. Meistens für Charles und Camilla, für die Prinzen William und Harry. Und manchmal diente ich auch der Königin selbst.
Meghan muss in Zukunft royales Verhalten aus dem FF beherrschen, wie zum Beispiel den perfekten Knicks.
Wenn Sie als Frau ein Mitglied der königlichen Familie treffen, stellen Sie den rechten Fuß hinter den linken, sodass die Zehen den Boden berühren. Dann gehen Sie etwas in die Knie und wieder hoch. Sie sollten auf keinen Fall zu weit runtergehen, denn dann besteht die Gefahr, dass Sie nicht mehr hochkommen.
Ausgerechnet Meghans erster öffentlicher Knicks vor der Queen ging allerdings gründlich schief.
Kate macht einen sehr deutlichen Knicks. Man sieht, dass die Position des Fußes stimmt. Sie geht leicht in die Knie, nicht zu weit. Bei Meghan sieht es aus, als hätte sie ihr Gewicht auf den hinteren Fuß. Sie steht beinahe so. Richtig wäre es aber so. Kates Knicks ist schöner. Sie hat ihn richtig gemacht. In Zukunft sollte Meghan also dem Beispiel von Kate folgen.
Nicht das einzige Mal, dass Meghan gegen die königliche Etikette verstößt. Ihre zerrissenen Jeans werden als nicht angemessen kritisiert. Dass sie beim Verlobungsfototermin keine Strumpfhose trägt, entspricht ebenfalls nicht dem offiziellen Dresscode. Und als Royal jemanden die Zunge herauszustrecken, geht gar nicht.
Ihr muss immer bewusst sein, dass ihr Verhalten für die ganze königliche Familie steht. Denn sie wird als die Familie des Vereinigten Königreiches wahrgenommen. Sie ist also auch eine Art königliche Marke. Und wenn sich jemand anders verhält, als es in der Familie üblich ist, ist das ein Problem. Es erregt eine unerwünschte Art von Aufmerksamkeit und schadet ihr.
Wird Meghan es schaffen, sich zurückzunehmen und sich so zu verhalten, wie es ihre neue Rolle von ihr verlangt? Meghan auf der Bühne mit Harry, William und Kate. Nicht mehr als Schauspielerin, sondern als Mitglied der königlichen Familie. Sie wird sich in Zukunft vor allem sozial engagieren.
Yeah, I think this is a really good place to stop and allow you to digest some of this, but definitely let me know your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
Such a fraud.